Hello everyone. This video is going to be about Bill C34. And as I've done with other videos or debriefings or briefings concerning these bills, and I did say I would look at this stuff, right? Because of this, right? This little flyer here and all these different bills that are being tabled in Parliament right now. I'm just reminding myself of all the work that goes into maintaining a civilization. Anyways, there's also a by-election coming up in my area in the fall, so that means there's going to be a few changes. And one would hope that we're all on the same team, but the reality is that we're not. And the insecurities of some other people and how they go about their business online and what they spew from their mouths with their ears closed off from any other opinion or judgment or evidence is exactly the reason why we need stuff like this as Bill C34, especially considering the vulnerability of children. And again, this is not a pretentious view of kids, because children often, in many capacities, are more mature and less judgmental than adults are. And it's like a great social experiment, you know, from I don't know, 50 years ago. Oh, let's put a black kid with a white kid together in the same playpen and then see if they develop racism. And this is how silly people are. This is how silly the academics are, because they don't have anything else. Their lives and their careers are constructed around conflict, not around peace. The ideas that motivate these people that would otherwise be in resistance and would rather perpetuate these behaviors is because they profit from them. One way or another, they profit from the exploitation of other people. And humanity, over our thousands of years of our existence on this planet, in this environment, has run out of predators of ourselves, right? We live in a very safe society, a very safe yeah, I will just call it that. We'll call it a society. Anyways, a very safe, relatively, considering other countries in which, I don't know, say maybe you lived in East Cleveland and you hear gunshots every day because of the poverty and the drugs. And when you put poverty and drugs together, you and then also sex, right? These people, these lower class people, are of course reproducing, right? It's like a whole idiocracy thing where all the stupid people are pumping out babies, and then the intelligent people are too scared and too paranoid to even touch each other. It's like this double-edged sword, right? And so this part of the video is more or less going to be about my reaction and the circumstances of my life experiences recently that would call into question the judgment of other people, because the proof is in the pudding, okay? The proof is in the pudding. There's only two possibilities. If someone, and because this is a thing, right? We want to tear down some people want to they have the suspicion of a person being evil or being an abuser, and the everything just flashes in their face from every other person that says that they're not. So this isn't a fantasy world, okay? This is real life. This is not a television drama where you can just swap gender roles because you feel like it. The world as we live in it right now, and humanity as it is, has requirements, right? And it has duties, these things that we've conceived through philosophical inquiry and logical deduction over the thousands of years of humanity. So what I'm getting at is that since we've run out of predators, we decided that, and we live in such luxury in comparison to other parts of the world, in this post-scarcity concept, which is silly, right? To think that we have unlimited resources, which is not realistic at all. The tendency is for, of course, those who are surrounded by wealth and beauty to seek out new thrills and new means of excitement, so as to remind themselves that they're alive. And in some cases, they take it upon themselves to start abusing children because they can just get away with it, and no one wants to interfere. And it doesn't have to be a very wealthy person in the instance of Voldemort, right? If you know who I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. You know the whole Maxwell house sort of thing. Anyways, and the other part is that these behaviors and these maligned people are used as an ultimatum, so as to extort people. So in other words, the volumes of material out there that's being produced on a daily basis, not just within these pornography studios or the bedrooms of OnlyFans content creators. Right? And I want to talk about this for a second because I'm personally affected by this. I am. Because, of the doubts and the questions of other people. Because, there's gaps. There's gaps in his story or something like that. I think you're looking for answers that don't exist. And that's a logical fallacy, actually, is to continue to beating on the horse until there's no more horse to ride. And when I was in prison, I had to share quarters in the same cell block as sex offenders before they were charged. And that'll fuck you up, okay? I shared a cell with this guy who was schizoid, all right? And I think he had some OCD or some other tics or whatever else, because he just wouldn't shut the fuck up about joining the military, or like how he wanted to get his driver's license and all this stuff. Meanwhile, he's got a cocaine problem and he hangs out with cocaine dealers. Oh, but we want to see this gentle soul, this disabled person. What makes you think a disabled person is any less manipulative or culpable than an able-bodied person? All right? And this guy was charged, and he pled guilty. He pled guilty, okay? To get out of jail earlier. He pled because he was luring little girls. And then there's two other instances of cases, rather. One was actively using marijuana and some other drugs to subdue a teenage woman. To produce sexually explicit material of an underage person. And then distributing it. And the guy was stupid enough to put it on his fucking Google. I'm dumbfounded by the shortcomings of our law enforcement and medical communities, because we have this influx of new people, these rookies. Y'all a bunch of fucking rookies, okay? And they keep reaching for conclusive evidence, or they have a vested interest in the opposition of what I'm trying to do, which is just be me. Well, the FCC won't let me be, so they're going to shut me down on MTV, but it feels so empty without me. Doesn't it? So by the mere fact that I'm in proximity to these people, someone's going to raise the question, oh, now he knows them, or he did, and he's acting like he doesn't. So he's participating in child exploitation with his nephew. He's molesting his nephew. I swear to God. Meanwhile, that person has been running around sexually abusing other people. Unfucking believable. I'm serious. I am not joking around. Human behavior is not that difficult to figure out. It's predictable. Okay, so I'm on the parliament.ca website here, the document viewer for Bill C34, and it's only had its first reading. This is very recent, in June 10th, and of course the Canada.ca website, that's a summary of what the bill is intended to do, because people are in opposition to this because of the fear, anxiety, and the paranoia of a digital ID, in which a person in a thought experiment could be singled out and then canceled from the internet. So, in other words, if there was a digital ID, then you wouldn't be able to subscribe to an ISP, and then the ISP would have to enforce the accessibility to these persons, discriminating between those who have digital ID and those that don't. So it's like who's verifiable and who isn't. It's a blue check mark for the government. One second. That's the idea. And like the legislation had to catch up with what's going on in order to prosecute these people that are producing this exploitive material, and the people that are distributing, and then the people that are profiting from it. So this becomes a precipice, and then a precedent, a legal precedent, that for which the law enforcement agencies can then cooperate with international organizations like Interpol and put these people in jail where they belong, and far away from me, quite frankly. Because there wasn't just one sex offender that I was around in that cell block. There's more than one. There was at least 3 of them just by looking at them and by how they behaved. As I once said to someone, actually she was a staff sergeant, I guess, right, in the prison. I think about you sometimes, I do. And anyways, so there was an intervention inside my cell because this guy was deranged. He was absolutely gone. Like, not only was he schizoid, he was doing drugs. He was smoking meth and shit like that. So his mind just quite didn't function correctly, and we got into a physical confrontation because he said something disrespectful about the military, and I wasn't very happy about that. So I corrected him, and then he starts throwing fisticuffs and bouncing my head off the fucking wall. So she comes in with another CO, right, a corrections officer, and she's like, "Did you have what's going on here, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, that?" And I'm like, I'm complete opposite of this guy, okay? Like, don't cast me in the same light as these people, because I'm not these people. But no one ever seemed to figure it out. Okay. So now that I've had my 15-minute rant, I'm actually going to read this because I got nothing else to do today. I'll probably do my workout. And then this is Bill C34, because this is one of the issues, one of the problems that I can deal with in front of me in the here and now at this moment. And I got to tell you, I got a firm fucking grasp on reality, okay? I know very well what is real and what isn't. It's just a matter of everyone else catching up to that. And that's the most painful part, is waiting for the response signal. It's like being on dial-up, okay? That's basically what it is that I'm communicating through a dial-up modem to all of these people. All right. Anyways, we'll see you in the next section of this video. And if you think I'm a sex offender, or that I raped a woman or something like that, or that I forced myself, or just had my way with the women in my past, you're part of the problem. And it's not true. It's not true. Okay, welcome back. I just finished reading this Bill C34, and we're going to go through my notes here and the bill itself as to what it actually is. And again, this is the first reading of this bill, so it still has to go through 2 other readings before it goes to a vote or whatever it is, and it's made into law. And okay. I would like to start by saying that the concept of safety is a fallacy due to its definition and subjectivity and relativity of the circumstance as what is deemed safe. In other words, what one individual thinks is okay to do and is safe to conduct such a behavior is completely different from the threshold of risk as to what someone else is comfortable with. And I take this language from financial investments. And what this is really all about is the money stream, right? So if you want to stop the exploitation, then you have to cut the income stream. That's the easiest way. You gotta follow the money, and you'll trace it back to a place or a person that usually is someone benign, right? The banality of evil is that it persists through individuals that are capable and very adept at deception. Okay, so as I started reading this, there are precedents, or what's it? There were historical precedents that say in the last 20 years that really inspired this legislature to be written. Okay, so the concerns that inspired this bill I would have to say has to do with the increased exposure and victimization, if not re-victimization, of individuals by online services hosting this content, or by allowing AI to run amok and influence individuals by limiting its access, so that, say, a child does not have to be exposed to the influence of a predator that is using the third-party service or the AI tools to either go about their behavior of exploitation and abuse. Of course, this is defined separately from other usages of artificial intelligence tools. So as it says on the Canada.ca website, online harms are not only the result of individual behavior, they are also shaped by how digital services are designed and operated. Features such as algorithmic recommendation systems, engagement-based feeds, autoplay, and endless scrolling can amplify harmful content and increase exposure, particularly for young users. So in other words, this has to do with dopamine burnout, and it's real. It's real. The fact is that we had this power vacuum, and with the advent of technology, these people that created these things had personal motivations to punish the rest of society as acts of revenge for how they were treated when they were younger. This is a classic high school nerd versus jock kind of thing. And then they became the bullies and started ignoring some of these things because they were useful to them. So the publishing of this content was something useful to them, so that they would torture its users in such a way that wasn't traceable. And so as to conduct a campaign of behavioral modification by using published knowledge that was previously classified and conducted under the MK Ultra program, if not other behavioral modification programs intended for a completely different usage that had unforeseen consequences in their implementation. See, publishing information, especially sensitive information, is a double-edged sword, right? And that's the thing about access to information. It is an ATIP, so an access to information protocol. And in every generation, there's always this desire for renewal or something, to change something that suits you as a younger person, but it doesn't contextually apply to you as an individual if you were 20 or 30 or 50 years older. Okay, so this is intended to prevent further reports of cyberbullying and the exposure of youths to such behaviors. So this bill is intended to update the criminal code to address gaps in the legislature concerning such behaviors, and it's intended to give the tools to the enforcement agencies to stop that. Okay, so next, this act also brings about the Digital Safety Commission of Canada Act, which means there is a delegate as designated by the Prime Minister or whomever decides, like I give a shit right now. Okay, so it establishes the Digital Safety Commission of Canada Act, which means the establishment of the commission, which is a third-party independent organization that is intended to enforce and then investigate moments of conflict between what is presented and what is the truth, what is the reality of the situation. Okay, so a lot of people had concerns about digital ID, but from everything that I read, digital ID is voluntary. The act in no way, shape, or form enforces at this stage of the first reading, nor gives guidelines as to how a digital ID would be implemented, if there was a requirement for such a thing. But in all reality, we already have digital IDs, and we already have facial verification through the different services. And for example, I'm going to use cryptocurrency APIs, so an access point interface, the provider. So in Canada, the examples that we have are Binance, Newton, or Netcoins. Those are the three ones at the top of my head. Binance, of course, this is a tangent, is not allowed to operate within Ontario, so that kind of makes things a little bit difficult. Okay. Next, I would like to state that pornography is used as a weapon of demoralization and exploitation. So as I said before, the easiest way to stop that is to remove the income stream, or the incentive to do such a thing. The other motivations to publish pornography of yourself is a very gray area, morally, and also through legislation. So next, this is a devil's advocate argument, that it is positive to purposefully expose children to pornography, so as to influence them into accepting behaviors and eliminating shame culture. I call these behaviors degenerate because they're disgusting, and they're at the same mental space and level as monkeys, right? The usage of other primates and their behaviors, that for which we impose a definition of homosexuality, etc., is a false prophet, right? It's a logical fallacy in that it's a leap. It's a false equivalency. That's basically what it is. Is to state that because something exists in nature, all it means that in another species means that it also exists within ourselves, and that's a hard conclusion to draw to. And even though I myself have used birds as an example of the existence of particular behaviors, and how similar they are to our own. But not in none of these arguments have I said that because this exists, this is a conclusive and reasonable thing or truth to make decisions upon from there on out, or to rewrite the science textbooks. And that the argument, again, this brings up something else I'm gonna mention later, having to do with the updating and changing of the sex education here in Ontario that happened in 2015 and then was scrapped in 2019. Okay, so it is my opinion that pornography is the lowest hanging fruit of humanity, since it only requires one to masturbate in public. And that's the reality, is that when you publish something onto the internet, you make it public, right? It's no longer you just rubbing one out on your teddy bear or something like that. Not that I would actually do that. Not that I have actually done that, because I haven't. I just it just seems like an easy example to take from. Okay, the bill mandates ISPs and social media tech companies to enforce the legislation, which in practicality delegates social responsibility to the private sector, but not with internal policing or oversight, as the DSCC is a third-party regulator and investigator in the circumstance of conflict of testimony. The bill targets sissification or feminization or grooming of underage or vulnerable persons, whether by physical or psychological means. I don't know if you've ever seen a sissification video, and it's disturbing. It'll fuck you up. I remember it to this day. I do. And the way that I felt afterwards wasn't shameful. It was like I had been violated. And watching that was like being violated. Like I couldn't wash my eyes with soap fast enough, or take a shower enough times in order to clean myself of such a shameful thing that I did not that I did not do myself. Just the idea or like the motivations that someone else would do that makes me want to puke. It makes me want to puke. And it stresses me out. There's other content that I viewed online that is more than questionable. And there's a movie that was produced by a Finnish director, and it's called Lolita. And Lolita is about a nubile young woman, so she's like 18 or 19 years old, and she comes from a vulnerable background, and she wants to get into pornography. So she does, and she looks like an underage woman, and the producers of the pornography, they latch onto this, and they start producing content that is questionable. And then she agrees to torture porn. She agrees to torture porn, and she does it. And like the male porn actors, they kind of give her some aftercare, but not really, not really. If you know the film that I'm talking about, then you know the film I'm talking about, and it was produced explicitly to show, not as propaganda or a shock value, but to show the negative sides of participating in the production of pornography, even if it's a solo effort, right? Even if it's done on your own independent volition. Okay. The bill does not target legitimate sex work. And we're going forth with this. It is so self-explanatory, right? As long as you're not producing or you're not holding content that would otherwise influence people to start acting a certain way and hanging out with certain people in order to gain social credibility, notoriety, or I'm going to call it clout, right? I'm going to call it clout. I'll be right back. I have to use the washroom. And I'm not going to bother cutting this. It's only going to take like 30 seconds. Anyways, like, fuck sakes. Okay, how'd I do? Pissed like a racehorse. Put that fire hose away. Fuck's sakes. Oh my Lanta. You know, people are so vicious. They're so vicious. Okay. Again, okay, so as I was just saying, the bill does not target legitimate sex work or the publishing of pornographic material if the person or people participating in it or publishing it are of the age of majority, and that the content does not depict scenarios of abuse or exploitation. I got to tell you, I'll say this truthfully. I've seen a few deflowering videos, and in which the female was of questionable age. And, you know, I didn't get off to it. I didn't. And that's been a thing for a number of years with the internet, and having grown up with the internet, is that sooner or later you're going to masturbate to an underage person, to your knowledge or not. And so the ethical question is, of course, so, and this was published on 4chan, like, decades ago, you know, and the people were talking about it, and they're like, so is it ethical to masturbate to pornography if the person is still alive? And then some people were like, oh yeah, I only masturbate to dead people, which is interesting in itself. Or I only masturbate to pornography that is from a different era, that was published at this time and is beyond the statute of limitations. There are no innocents, in my opinion, when it comes to sexual behaviors. Every single one of us has done something that was questionable, even the most virtuous of us. But in the instance that the two parties in that room, the consenting adults, went about these behaviors, then I guess it's okay, right? The government of Canada has no place in the bedrooms of Canadians. But apparently it has a place in sex education and the glorification of certain behaviors that happen to be learned behaviors. Okay. Furthermore, it is nearly impossible to enforce age of majority due to the global scale of the internet and the nuances of international law. And that's to me, that's a valid statement. So the bill is attempting, again, to limit access and to prevent further harm by exposure to children, right? That for which their brains are not fully developed and they don't have the cognizance just yet, or the maturity of the physical structure of the brain. The brain keeps developing until you're 25. Isn't that right? Your neural network is not solidified until you're 25 years old. So, you know, the abuse of drugs, alcohol, or pornography has real long-term consequences to the individual. Okay, Bill C34 is not a censorship bill. It is intended to give the tools required to the persons exercising the wishes of the DSCC without the inconvenience of having to consult Parliament every time an anomaly presents itself. And I say anomaly because that's a reference to Minority Report. The DSCC is obligated to conduct periodic assessments of effectivity from implementing the laws set forth by the legislature and by the measure of prosecutable offenses to counteract the efforts of perpetrators of such crimes. So this is the arms, right, versus armament. So armament meaning the actual coverings, right? In that every time we come up with a new weapon, someone comes up with a means of counteracting or combating that tactic or that weapon. And we're seeing this now with drone warfare in the experimental theater of the Ukraine. Okay, so the act, again, does not counteract overzealousness, the eagerness, or the enthusiasm of law enforcement. In other words, and this seems to be a thing amongst women, but men do it as well, and just as complicitly. And within the past 25 years, we've had this rise to power that resulted from the efforts of feminism. So you have all of these rookies in these powerful positions who are just scrambling. They don't have a fucking clue what they're doing. And then they've gone about trying to eliminate the competition, which to them is men and male teachers. You see, that was the issue, is that they wanted to eliminate male role models from the education system. Because typically a man is a disciplinarian. And they wanted to raise the visibility and the image of feminist heroes. So, say for example, Canada has, for the first time, a woman as a CDS, as the commander of the Canadian Forces. And the majority of the generals, actually, I wouldn't say the majority, a number of them, visibly, are women. Now, I want to add into this the cultural touchstone that we have right now that has to do with the pharmaceutical dependence of thousands of people upon stimulants. So the amphetamines, the methamphetamines, these drugs intended to counteract behavioral issues, right? So ADD, ADHD, AUAD, or whatever some of these mystical kind of mental issues or learning disabilities. And so one of the problems, or one of the symptoms of abuse of amphetamines or methamphetamines is paranoia. More so than marijuana. So what you have now is even more people in positions that are high on stimulants and dependent upon them, and they're the ones making the laws concerning the therapy or the treatment of individuals that would otherwise be treated differently. Why? Because of their fear of what something will become, or what someone will become. And because they wanted that place that person holds, either within a social group, society, or culture. And again, it doesn't matter what legislation that we make or that we provide for law enforcement to act upon. There will always be people that take it upon themselves to manipulate the law for both personal and financial gain. Now, I'm going to cite Diana Davidson because she's really covered this over the years, along with like Megan Murphy or Pearl Davies, and then some other feminist icons, quite frankly, that have gone over this. And of course, you know, the most infamous bastion, I'll give you a compliment today, Peterson, of Western civilization, in which people attempted to cancel them through the Law Society of Ontario. Again, we keep letting the crazies run the nut house here, and then we just expect them to abide by what we tell them what to do. In reality, they broke the truce. They broke the truce. We gave them everything. We gave them everything that they wanted, and they broke the truce. They started diddling with the kids. Okay. The act gives credence to a witness or victim of online harm resulting from the proxy usage of AI tools for personal or corporate gain and or advantage. again, the cancel culture that we've experienced still exists. It still exists. You know, I would like to think that it's over, but there's still holdouts, you know, amongst ourselves that refuse to let go, because letting go means they no longer have authority, and they want authority because that's what gives them self-satisfaction, and that position of importance is what gives them meaning to their lives. So if and when they lost that position, they would threaten suicide. They would start trying to extort people or issue ultimatums because of the dirt that they have on other people. It's a Game of Thrones, and you know, the knife that cuts is the knife that saves. Okay. So also the Act allows for submissions from the public. So I'm going to read directly from the Act here. A person in Canada may make submissions to the Commission respecting harmful content that is accessible or regulated social media service, communicated by a regulated chatbot to a user of the service, or accessible in a regular online service. B, harmful behavior referred to in Section 53 that engaged in by a regulated chatbot service, or the measures taken by the operator of a regulated service to comply with his duties under the Act. Okay, so the publishing of the Epstein files and the Sound of Freedom has had unforeseen consequences of popularizing vigilante action in the circumstance where the inadequacies of law enforcement organizations were not or are not prepared for the landslide of pedophilic content produced in foreign countries by cultures that do not share the same values, culture, or religion. These circumstances inspired legions of uneducated and motivated individuals to seek out behaviors that would incriminate an individual, remove them from their community, or freeze out that person regardless of the burden of proof or the lack of due process. The Act does not provide measures to prevent or arrest abuses of authority or position, as this is covered elsewhere in the Criminal Code. And this is where I come to the sex education, right? This is a reminder that Trudeau's delegate, and again, this is I couldn't find the articles. It's only by rumor that his delegate implemented updated sex education curriculum in Ontario in 2015. He was a sex offender. So why are we letting a sex offender write the sex education curriculum? And it was under, of course, that happened under Kathleen Wynne, whom is an out and proud dyke butch, or butch dyke. Okay, and my next point is that homosexuality, pedophilia, and transgenderism are learned behaviors, and enforcing tolerance and acceptance culture is like rubbing your genitals on a cheese grater. Okay, so the fallacy that they thought that they could go about this by educating people and browbeating them basically via discipline or the threat thereof discipline. That they could do away with these behaviors. They could just stop them. They could stop them from happening through the next generation, and by implementing communism or socialist values, so that everybody's in the same happy place. Okay, so it is a fallacy to think that education and education alone is enough to stop undesirable outcomes. But the liberals seem to think that we can sing songs around the campfire and have sex in public without consequence by redefining the terminology and language that describes what is deemed to be previously culturally unacceptable or un-Canadian. That's the end of my commentary for the Act. And I'm just going to cite the penalties. Again, this is just the first reading. It hasn't gone through yet. The penalties are harsh for non-compliance, and the liability is placed upon the corporation that failed to enforce the policy set forth by the commission. So the greater of 10 million, this is the maximum penalties. The greater of 10 million and 3% of the gross global revenue in the financial year before the one in which the penalty is imposed of the person that is believed to have committed the violation, or in the case of a person that is not an individual, and the greater of $10 million and 3% of the gross global revenue in the year before the one in which the penalty is imposed. It's just like this. That's a little, that needs to be edited out, because the definition is basically the same. Okay, so obviously this is still a rough draft, right? That's why we have readings. And I must reemphasize that digital ID is voluntary. Okay? And that we already have analogs for such a thing in place. So it would be redundant in order to have such a thing. And I also read the UNICEF write-up about this, which was published on the same day. For the day of the introduction. Okay, and what they say is here is the Safe Social Media Act marks an important and long overdue step to address the very real risks children face online, from harmful content and exploitation to unsafe AI interactions. It is also a positive signal for frustrated and anxious parents, many of whom have had to navigate the wild west of social media platforms alongside their kids. It is also important to be realistic. Digital life for children isn't going anywhere. Case in point, countries with only a blanket age ban in place, like Australia, are finding them extremely difficult to enforce and unevenly applied. So there's not a unilateral policy for this stuff. And I don't think there should be. You know, again, laws contextually are specific to their geography. That's why we still have these strange, unenforceable laws. Say, like, you're not able to walk a shoed horse down Main Street in Calgary at certain times, or if you're not wearing a hat, then you're going to go to jail. That sort of thing. Okay. Furthermore, from the UNICEF website, Bill C34's duties to protect children, act responsibly, and make certain content accessible needs, in addition, a duty to consult young people. Aligned with Canada's commitments outlined in the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, children and youth have the right to shape policies that in turn will fundamentally shape their lives and continue to be engaged in reviews when the bill becomes law. I gotta tell you, from observing the art of children that they put online, the fan art on Discord servers and stuff like this, that some of it is sexual. Actually, a fair bit of it is sexual. And the means by which they are groomed into certain lifestyles is by lures, right? And by positive reinforcement. And that was an issue amongst furries, right? Furries were not explicitly gay, but the origins of such are, right? They're degenerate. It's degenerate. It's just strange, unusual, and unacceptable, in my opinion. In these behaviors in which people, they put on this narcissistic mask, right, or a persona in which they can distance themselves from certain behaviors because that was not them, that was their persona, etc. So I'm going to use Marshall Mathers as an example, right? So Marshall is an individual separate from Eminem. Eminem is the one that's doing the drug. Eminem is the one that is abusing people with his alcoholism and so on and so forth. So it wasn't me. That wasn't me, man. That wasn't me. I'm not the mass murderer the man with the mask on is. So that's the end of it. That's because this has gone on for an hour now, and I don't want to take up any more of your time if you're watching this. I think the intentions are good, but of course, the path to hell is paved with good intentions, and we've got a really tough terrain to navigate through all of this, you know. And I really hope that by doing so, that putting this into place, that we exonerate some of the people that have personal motivations to fight this exploitation, right? I'm not saying that I want to, or whether it is ethically correct to do so, to canonize vigilantes, right? This isn't some sort of Batman, DC Comics sort of thing. And in reality, again, a lot of these people for which are known to have this material and publish it and create it, claim themselves to be victims of other circumstances. And that's the explanation and justification for their behavior. But me, by my example, I had the cognizance, I had the discipline and the free will as given to me by God to not push the button. To not push the button. Okay? Just like that enlisted kid, that enlisted guy who was in a missile silo in the Soviet Union all those years ago, in which a threat was shown to him, but later proven to be a false positive. And that's what I want to take away from this. And this is what I'm hoping for, is to stop the false positives and the minority reports from happening. That's all me as an individual can really hope for. Because, again, the path to hell is paved with good intentions. Okay, so that's the end of it. End of this briefing. Bill C34 has legitimate reasons to exist, but again, it is the misinformation or the publishing and using of scare tactics and fear tactics to get people up in arms to resist something is, again, another low-hanging fruit of humanity. And that's what I don't like. It's obvious why I don't like propaganda, because propaganda in these circumstances gives people like me a bad reputation, right? It is an insult to artists everywhere in the pursuit of something greater, in the pursuit of something that is wholesome and is rewarding just because of what it is, the pursuit of greatness. If we ever find it. Anyways, to the wild blue yonder. This is where we're going with the internet, right? We're still in the wild west of this digital frontier. Thanks for watching.